This video is going to be my review of the Baltimore Ravens draft haul for the 2024 NFL draft that took place in Detroit. Going to go through some of my thoughts and impressions on what the Ravens were able to bring back in terms of additions to the roster. Just a whirlwind of 3 days. You can tell I'm still trying to get back to 100% in terms of health. I'm getting there. I hope you had fun with the draft, despite the anxiety that I'm sure you shared from watching really good players go off the board in between our picks. One thing that I thought about during this draft was so many teams seem to have picks stacked together closely. The Patriots, the Cardinals, other teams traded back and forth, so it's kind of hard for me to remember, but particularly the Cardinals seem to have, even in the fourth round, I believe, late third, early fourth, they seem to have like 3 picks in a span of 15, selections. It was kind of crazy. In terms of the Ravens, I think they brought in a ton of young talent. There'll be disagreement about certain picks or the timing of those picks for real. And I do have one very large complaint where I think the Ravens front office lost initiative to really hit a grand slam in this one. I don't think this is a grand slam. Maybe it's a solo homer or a triple that scores a couple of runs. I'm not sure. I really do like the collection of players, though, that you see on the screen, at least the list. Start this off talking obviously about the biggest one, getting a guy like Nate Wiggins at 30. It was kind of surreal. Look, I posted up some clips on Twitter or X of Wiggins against Zay Flowers, obviously from 2022 when Zay was still at Boston College. And look, Boston College quarterback, nowhere near the level that Wiggins is going to face in the NFL, clearly. But in terms of coverage, leverage, athleticism, being able to match the routes, Wiggins was a true sophomore in that game, and he stacked up with Zay Flowers. Did he shut him down? Did he blanket Zay? Did he shut him down? No. But look, Wiggins was 19 years old at the time of that game. I produced, like I said, a thread on Twitter with about 8 or 10 coverage snaps. I'll link it up in the description. You're welcome to check it out. Flowers finished the game with 8 catches, 75 yards. But if you watch the plays, if you watch the various coverages Wiggins plays, and he plays them all extremely well, maybe one blown coverage on his part, perhaps some miscommunication between him and a safety, I'm not sure. But you can see he is at that level. Great pick at 30. The speed, versatility, the ability to match deep routes and deal with things that break at the sticks. He trusts his speed so much, he can turn later than other guys because he can catch up to deeper routes, and therefore he can defend at the sticks, the line to gain, better than some others. I thought it was a great start. Then it was a long wait until 62, obviously, till the next day, the ensuing day, Friday. And I understand. Look, there's two sides to this. I want the offense. We all want the offense to be unstoppable, and part of that is an offensive line that puts a wall up around Lamar, as if he needs one all the time. He doesn't, but most of the time he does, just like any other quarterback. We want him to be a facilitator for most of the game, and we want him to win games, make game-winning plays in the playoffs with his legs when he has to, but not all the time. Um, I know that there are others who wanted a high-level wide receiver at 30. And look, guys like Keon Coleman, Xavier Legette, Ricky Pearsall, Ladd McConkey, Jalen Polk all went off the board soon after we selected Nate Wiggins. And there's others who wanted offensive line addressed at 30. And wide receiver, as I mentioned. The Ravens went with a young, incredibly athletic corner, one that gets to fit into the defense when everyone is healthy, specifically, obviously talking about Marlon Humphrey. We have Kyle Hamilton, Marcus Williams, Marlon Humphrey, Brandon Stevens, Arthur Millette, and now Nate Wiggins. That primary group of 6 guys, ton of talent and experience there, and lots of guys who can play any coverage, and they make plays on the ball. Rosengarten, that wait on Friday when the draft finally started Friday night, it was really tough. Now, he's a solid pick. I really like his game and his style. He held things down on the right side of Washington's O-line, if you ask me. The right guard next to him was very inconsistent, in my opinion, and unreliable at times. If you haven't watched the film, look, Rosengarten was not playing next to a guy that brought the same high-level execution and versatility in terms of dealing with so many different types of athletes that Rosengarten saw. He looks like a really good tackle to me. Is he an immediate starter in 2024? I think he's got a really good chance to, absolutely. Is he an immediate starter for 30 teams in the NFL? No. I think there's a difference in level there, and I think he's going to be better than Falele by far at right tackle. Is he better than Macari by far? The best version of Pat Macari that we've seen, when we get that version, is pretty good, but it just doesn't seem like Macari's able to do those things on a week-by-week basis. Rosengarten is. He is. Somebody in our Discord called him high cut. I don't know if anything about him is cut, if you've seen him dressed it for the combine, but didn't give up a sack in 2 years. I can't say if he's a all-pro, Pro Bowl type guy. I watched the Washington-Michigan game during round 3, the national title game, and he played well in the snaps that I saw, and he faced a myriad of rush archetypes. Jalen Harrell, outside linebacker, McGregor, the big outside linebacker DN for Michigan, and then Chris Jenkins Jr. on a few reps also, and he handled himself well. I think it was a great pick there at 62. I think the Ravens apparently believe the Chiefs wanted him. Chiefs tried to trade up, and then eventually Chiefs traded up with the 49ers. So they picked Sua Matea one selection later than the Ravens in round 2. Kind of crazy. There was a ton of trades early in round 2, if I remember correctly, and the Ravens just stayed there because with a run on defensive players early in round 2, those possibly a market correction from so many offensive players being taken early. I think of the first 14 picks, 13 or 14 picks was offense. And then there was a run on defensive players you knew there had to be. There's good talent being pushed down the board. So those tackles were kind of I don't want to say falling, but they were lasting longer than others had projected in between round 1 and round 2. From Thursday night to Friday evening, so many people were concerned about our ability to get a tackle at 62. Did we get one of the top 5? No. Did we get a guy who is capable of coming in and starting? Yes, I do believe so. Unless there's some absolute weakness that he has to a particular type of rush move or rusher. The only question I would have is the 6'4", 275, 280-pound uber athletic DNs like Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. That's the only guys that I can say, hey, I'm not sure I like our chances there. And if Todd Monken's scheme doesn't allow for chips and help, maybe Todd Monken's scheme needs to evolve at times. Maybe there needs to be help provided on one side and maybe not on the other. I mean, you watch high-level football at the college level, NFL, playoff, Super Bowl, they're chipping guys all the time to slow down those rushers because it's like a body shot. The more they have to deal with it, the slower it makes them throughout the game, particularly when you're talking about some of the guys that are bigger and bulky like Myles Garrett that don't have great cardio. I think he'll be able to compete over there at right tackle. I guess they're leaving him there. I guess they're leaving Macari there at right tackle as well because we drafted a backup center and a potential guard, really, if we needed it. The Ravens do have more depth on the O-line than maybe we realize, but I would have liked a third selection at offensive line. I think our situation warrants it. The film of Rosengarten does look good, so I know everyone has penciled him in as a starter. And the film that I have seen so far certainly looks really good. All right, Isaac, pick 93. That 93 to 113, 130 turnaround, I think, was important. I actually mentioned it in some of my previews for the draft that I felt like the pick at 93 was as important as picks 1 and 2 because we had to get somebody there who could contribute now, and I don't think we got that. I don't. Choosing to go – and look, Isaac's a talented outside linebacker. He comes from a system that forced him to be versatile. I want to expand on that a little bit. Manny Diaz runs an extremely an attacking style defense, similar to Mike McDonald in some ways, but it's more attacking. I mean, I actually wish I had the time to do like a Penn State defensive study or Manny Diaz defensive study because he's at Duke now. And it's a very unique defense. And to be honest, it's a true personnel package defense where he gets the most out of a large number of players. And I think it's smart in this day and age, particularly with NIL and the portal. Use a ton of guys in different personnel packages, attack people. And that's what he does. And Isaac played in all of those packages. That's my point. Chop Robinson didn't. Isaac played in all of them. He moved around on the defensive line. And certainly from a production standpoint, you look at his stats. I think it's good stats, 14 and a half sacks in his career. I believe 31 and a half tackles for loss in his career, 7.5 sacks, 16 tackles for loss in 2023. I did about 4 hours of work today, earlier Saturday, I should say, to produce a Twitter X film study on Isaac. That's how much I do, in fact, like him as a talent, but not at 93. Not with the depth of, in my opinion, what needed to be addressed wide receiver, O-line, in this draft because of the quality of O-lineman that was there, the quality of wide receivers that was there. I didn't think he was a pick at 93. If he's there at 130, I would say it's an amazing pick. You'll counter with, Coach, he probably wouldn't be. I agree. 113, I wouldn't have as much of a problem with it. I thought at 93, going into this draft, we had to find someone who could play, I don't know if I want to say right now, every snap, but we needed to find someone who was going to play a ton of snaps somewhere. And I don't think Isaac is that guy in 2024. I think the Ravens front office got it wrong here. Feel free to disagree with me and let me know. I get it because we have one of the best front offices in professional sports, let alone the NFL. And we trust Eric DeCosta in the front office. We trust those guys, the evaluators. And I'm glad for the entirety of the draft haul here. I really am. But for this team, we did not need to use third-round capital on another young pass rusher who, from my perspective, is better against the run than he is as a pass rusher. And again, I watched 5 games immediately after he was drafted. Produced something on Twitter that I think's probably got 40 plays clipped up. I'll put it in the description. He's light. On film, he looks very small compared to the 300-pound tackles in the Big Ten. And then the NFL, that differential will be greater. If they picked him at 130, amazing. A+ for that slot. They picked him at 113, B+. Pick 93 for me is a C because we need. There's other guys that were on the board that could have, I thought, helped the offense, which I think is where we needed to get more help in round 3. That's just my opinion. Luke McCaffrey, Troy Franklin, Javon Baker, they all go in round 4. A guard goes in round 4, Layden Robinson from Texas A&M. But in any case, I understand people will have different opinions, and we do trust the front office, so by default sometimes we defend all of the picks. I'm not going to be able to do that, just my nature, when I think something didn't work out to the best possible outcome, which is what I think happened from 93 to 113 to 130. Fortunately for the Ravens, we did have a receiver, Walker, there at 113. We had no choice but to go receiver at 113. Now, there was other guys taken in round 4 and then early round 5. Good names, good players. I know Jacob Cowing from Arizona, a guy that Edgar Allen, EA, likes a lot. Anthony Gould, Aeneas Smith, Jamari Thrash. I think one more, maybe Means, is taken round 4 to round 5. But the Ravens were very fortunate that Walker was there at 113, in my opinion. That pick at 93, for me, set us back 2 slots in terms of wide receiver and O-line. We ended up not taking an offensive lineman until round 7. I think we probably could have earlier, and in some ways should have. You may disagree. Actually, most people do disagree. On Twitter, most people were very antagonistic, or at least direct, that I was wrong about pick 93 with Isaac, and that's no problem. There's other guys that were worthy of selections there, in my opinion. As it turns out, we end up with Walker and TJ Tampa in round 4. Those two and Isaac, I suspect a year or 2 from now, we will all like them a lot, myself included, including Isaac, because I recognize that he's a good player with good talent, just like Tampa and Walker are. Just don't think we needed him at 93. I did a ton of work to try to convince myself that he was the right move there. I went through 5 games. I just couldn't convince myself, especially when in round 5 you had Xavier Thomas from Clemson and Austin Booker from Kansas. 2 other names linked to the Ravens, good players, and they go early in round 5. I do want to add that I think some of the guys near the back end of this draft could end up being rotational pieces sooner rather than later. Besides Tampa, the center from Michigan State, Nick Samak, I think that's how you say it. He can play. He's nasty. Rasheen Ali, the running back from Marshall, it gives me Keaton Mitchell vibes, except he's bigger and doesn't have breathtaking speed, but he's incredibly fast. I can see him on zone read stuff being dangerous with Lamar Jackson. And what I mean is, Derrick Henry's going to get a lot of carries. Justice Hill's going to be in the game. But Ali, if he's able to get on the field late in games when we've got the lead, I could see him busting some big runs if we had the opportunity to rest Derrick Henry. I like the Walker pick at 113. Glad he was there. It was close. I don't know about you, but I was concerned. Troy Franklin had went to the Broncos at 102. Javon Baker to the Patriots, 3 picks before us, or maybe 2 picks. I was tracking it to see if Watkins would be there, or Walker would be there, because if he wasn't, we were going to have a problem, in my opinion, because we needed to address receiver there. Certainly couldn't have gone defense again for the 3rd out of 4 picks, if you ask me. It would have been interesting for me if Baker gets to 113 with Walker to see which one they pick. Staying in the 4th round with TJ Tampa, well, I mean, wow. Like, both of these guys can develop and contribute to this Ravens franchise. We don't need 50 catches from Des Walker anytime soon. We just need someone to be another threat so we can move Flowers and Bateman around in a different version of 11 personnel. The Ravens under Monken did the same thing last year. They had 2 different versions of 11 personnel. One of them had Aguilar. One of them did not. The Ravens aren't going to be in 12 personnel more than 35% of the time at most in 2024. They will not be a 12 personnel team 50% of the time. You can count on that. That's not Todd Monken's offense. He will use it. But that's not what he's going to do the majority of the time. I think we needed a wide receiver with some size and speed. Walker provides that. He can stretch the field, allow Bateman to get some more high percentage opportunities, and in some cases spell Bateman. Less than we did last year with OBJ, though, where you guys have heard me already. I think OBJ and Bateman pretty much just rotated snaps for the most part. Walker and Hardy, the free agent signing, add that speed element that I think we needed. Tampa falling to round 2 wasn't cool to see, but it was fortunate drop for Baltimore. And doubling up on corners is really impressive. 2 very distinct and different physical profiles. Tampa's very physical, tough playing style, good tackler. I think he's a good prospect for round 3. If we had picked him at 93, I think it's a good selection. I wouldn't have been happy about it, though. Again, going back to the Isaac thing, I think we needed to go receiver or O-line at 93. But at 113, I would have been a huge fan of Tampa. At 130, incredible. Even with other things to address, that's a second-round talent, second-round rated player coming into the draft who we got late in round 4. I'm not sure if 4.5 speed or 4.56, whatever he ran, is a disqualifier for some of the coverages we played on the outside last year. We played a lot of man, particularly with Brandon Stevens to the boundary. Darby held up when he was in there and certainly wasn't the fastest guy compared to a Stevens or a Wiggins, and got himself a great contract. All of those coaches, though, are gone. The only one that didn't leave from a position coach standpoint, Chuck Smith, and then Zach Orr, promoted from inside linebackers coach to DC. Having Tampa be our 4th outside corner is impressive, if you ask me, and great roster building, great depth provided there. He's a good football player. I do plan to go back and rewatch the film. Walker will be the next guy I try to produce something for. I don't put college film on my YouTube. Most of you guys know that, but I want to rewatch Tampa film after I get done with Walker. I think I have 4 games on him now to just kind of confirm things that were already in my mind. Rounds 5 through 7. I won't show the safety. I won't show a picture of the safety here that we got from Purdue. Not that I think he's a bad player, just didn't have room. I like the big play potential of Ali from Marshall. Like I said, bigger, not as unbelievably fast as Keaton Mitchell, but looks like a home run hitter. Did have some issues with fumbles and injury previously, but we got him in the 5th round, I believe. Really high-level talent, explosiveness to be available in round 5 to us. I'm a big fan of Samak. Was able to watch about 15 minutes of a game. Really classic center. Very smart. Physical, nasty, finishes off plays. I'm not so much a big fan of the quarterback, to be honest with you, but I do wonder or suspect if there's some 4D chess going on. And here's what I mean. I don't think anyone's going to want to steal our third string emergency quarterback, Leary. I almost call him Dennis Leary. If you're not old like I am, you won't get that reference. And I don't know if this is actually the case, so feel free if I'm off base here. Are we able to get Cunningham reps in practice at quarterback such that he can still be classified as some other position, wide receiver, presumably, whatever, and he'll be officially labeled there, so that basically if there's an injury, we can keep Leary as our emergency guy, just move Johnson to the starter, God forbid that happens, and then Cunningham move up the quarterback, basically protect him, because he seems like more of an asset than Leary, if that makes sense. Are we able to do that? Are we able to hide a quarterback if Cunningham practices at another position primarily? I don't know, any of that information is just speculation, so I don't know exactly how that works with players that play two positions like Cunningham apparently will. I am interested in the plan, though. Bringing in Emory Jones, Florida, and then Cincinnati. He's also got a pretty cool name. If you know, you know. Gives us at least guys who can throw the football in practice and play in preseason games, so that's good. In summary, I think this is a really good draft for the Ravens. I can't shake that feeling for me of the 93, 113, 130 turnaround. But I understand people don't have the same evaluation of it. But I want to add one thing. Walking away with a guard at some point, I thought was the better option, and I thought there were players there that could make it worth your while. I like Isaac as a talent, guy with potential, but he's smaller and slower than Tavius Robinson in testing, which is Isaac's strength, testing. Robinson 6'6", 257 in last year's combine. Combine ran 4.66. Isaac is 6'4", 247, looks significantly smaller against Big Ten O-linemen, and I think ran a 4.74 in the 40. It has a very slow get-off. I guess it all depends on your preference for those outside linebackers, and how much you trust. Look, the reality, how much you trust starting with Owe and Ojabo, even though we brought back Kyle Van Noy. Wiggins and Rosengarten are clearly the headliners for this draft, and neither one of them is guys I foresaw coming to Baltimore. I mean, I did a Twitter thing on Wiggins a couple of months ago, but I didn't evaluate or project either one of those guys to be there for us. I thought the Ravens would go tackle first, and they didn't, and then corner second, and they didn't. They flip-flopped. Great selections, proven players at the highest level. The start here was amazing. Even though as a fan, look, selfishly, that wait from 30 to 62, because it's the end of the first round on Thursday and then the beginning and then to the end of the second round Friday, that was tough. Would I have wanted us to trade up? Yes, I would have wanted us to. But Eric DeCosta said, they liked the options that they saw fall into them. Maybe fall isn't the right word. It's simulations or projection. Let's finish with this. Did we do enough for the offensive line for you? I think it's debatable with all the offensive line talent that was out there. I see no reason not to take a guy like Mahogany somewhere. I understand that would mean we didn't get Ali in the fifth round. It would be my contention that if we went offensive line at 113 or 130 by going receiver at 93, then we could have taken a guy like Mahogany, and we could have also taken Ali in the fifth round. But I digress. I think there's guys who went off the board later on after we selected at offensive line, the teams are happy to get. And I think Mahogany from Boston College is one of them. Another question, should the Ravens have gone offense position first at 30 instead of Wiggins? There was options on the board, clearly. I would have no problem if someone wants to say yes. Then the only issue for that is if you address tackle at 62, presumably in the same way, pushes corner to, yep, you guessed it, 93. Not going to go down that road again. There's multiple ways this thing could have gone, obviously. We seem to spread our picks out across a lot of positions. A couple of guys that I was really interested in, besides Renardo Green, who went to the 49ers, was Jalen Wright, the running back from, I think, Tennessee, who ended up going to the Dolphins. Speed and home run ability proven at a very high level. 49ers had an interesting draft, underrated. I do want to mention it. Renardo Green, and then two speedy, quick, smart wide receivers, Pearsall and Jacob Cowing, and then Garendo, the running back from Louisville. So it's kind of like they went with speed. Do you think the Ravens did enough for the offense for you? Was it just right? It certainly wasn't too much. My own grade is probably not going to make you happy. I got a B plus on the whole thing, and that's basically because of the 93, 113, 130 situation being in the wrong order, in my opinion. For the immediate returns that we'll expect to get from Isaac in 2024 and even in 2025. Think about this. If we extend Oweh, or if Ojabo stays healthy, which I know sounds like a bad joke at this point, we still have Tavius Robinson under contract. Kyle Van Noy signed a 2-year deal with, I think there is an out after 2024. But there's absolutely a very real possibility that Isaac doesn't do anything for us in 2024 or 2025. I have no problem if someone gives the Ravens an A, but nearly missing out on a wide receiver at 113, one with pure speed, pure talent, and that was very close to happening. I'm glad it didn't happen. I'm glad that Walker was there at 113. Feel free to let me know how different your grade or summary is in the comments section. This went on a little bit long. My apologies. I had a lot to say. I didn't put out a video after Friday night's round 2 and round 3. I didn't have the voice capability to do so. Let me know if you agree with some of my assertions in this or assertions in this video. I realize my reaction here is kind of late. I'm still trying to get my thoughts all collected together, how I think that things could have gone slightly different and gone from a B plus to possibly an A plus. Thank you guys for checking this one out. If you haven't done so already, please consider liking the video, commenting, and subscribing. And then if you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this draft review, Ravens-specific draft review, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.